Another day, another piece of priceless New York architecture destroyed by none other than Spider-Man, the Webbed Wonder. Was the Harlem Sanitarium in the best condition? No. Did the doctors there at one point commit horrible atrocities against their patients? Probably. Does that mean we should let spandex-suited vigilantes swing willy-nilly through a piece of our history? I think not. It is our duty, nay, our responsibility to maintain these shameful monuments to our past, because that's the America that I call home. Like I said to my doctor when she recently told me to calm down, I won't, and I'll tell you why. I'm certain the police could have handled whatever petty argument was going down at the sanitarium without the destructive force of the webhead's wacky weapons. What say you, New York? We're here to talk about a hot-button issue today, folks, and that's crime boss Hammerhead. It turns out that petty argument at the Harlem Sanitarium was actually a Magia smackdown against this flat-topped flop. But here's the thing about Hammerhead, valued listeners. He might be an unhinged, rampaging cop killer who my assistant Jared keeps calling a beta, for reasons that I'm certain must be shark-related. But he has some interesting ideas. What's so wrong with pining for the good old days? Hammerhead wants to bring New York back to a time where people didn't get offended by everything, and spiders were just bugs you killed in your apartment, and I didn't have to take blood pressure medication. Now, if we could just stop him from destroying the city and its citizens in the process, wow, that would be great! Today, on Just the Facts with Jonah Jameson, the Magia are turning the streets of Manhattan into a gang war. Why, you ask? Because nobody listened to me when they had the chance. If we just cleaned up the city, returned to our collective senses, and run Spider-Man out of town, not necessarily in that order, then a psychopathic crime boss wouldn't be wrecking New York in some misguided pursuit of that same goal. Look, Hammerhead's impulse to take us back to a simpler time before any of us had heard of web shooters isn't wrong, but his methods are obscene. Attacking the police, terrifying citizens, the man gives simpler times a bad name. Like this infernal sodium-free beverage I'm being forced by the medical establishment to drink for my health gives soda a bad name. And meanwhile, where's our city's so-called savior, Spider-Man, in all this? I need to lay down. Friends, our streets are safer than ever before, thanks to the tireless efforts of the swinging spectacle, Spider-Man. Oh, just kidding! Our streets are actually in more literal danger than they've ever been, because it seems like someone made Hammerhead's idiot men resort to digging up roads in the middle of rush hour! It's clear that the only way crime boss Hammerhead thinks he can get people to listen to his pleas for a return to decency is by actually razing this city to the ground. And while I frankly find the sentiment admirable, just like my doctor thinks it's admirable that I've cut back on alcohol consumption, I think we can all agree that we'd much rather get home on time and alive than late and dead. Meanwhile, Spider-Man, it seems, is actively assisting the Magia during all this. Spider-Man or Spider-Mob? You decide. First of all, I'd just like to make it clear that I am perfectly capable of running this show alone and absolutely know how to work this computer by myself. Shut it, Jared, I'm getting to it. But you, loyal listeners, should know that I choose not to. I'm getting to it. And that's why I have decided, of my own accord, that's enough, Jared, to bring my assistant, Jared, back to the Just the Facts with Jonah Jameson operation. And to apologize to him on the air, which is what I'm doing now. Right now. And are you serious? Are you really doing this right now, you little... Now, typically, I don't like to trash talk other... Who put this note here? What's a content creator? That means nothing, Jared. Those are two meaningless words that put together make one meaningless phrase, Jared. What I'm trying to say, listeners, is that I don't speak ill of other extremely famous and influential New Yorkers like myself. But we need to get one thing straight. Screwball is a menace to this city, just barely surpassed by Spider-Man himself. Do they hand channels out to just anybody these days? This purple-haired punk is allowed to run rampant online, and if she isn't kept in line, she's going to cause a total societal collapse. I can't tell you what to do, fine listeners, and I would never suggest you do anything borderline illegal. But if Screwball's channel just so happened to be shut down and she was never able to broadcast again, I think that would be a fine way to protect your city. Finer than anything Spider-Man's ever bothered to do for us. Well, folks, seems I have a retraction to make. Some of my previous comments about finding Hammerhead's ideas interesting, because he wants to make this beautiful city respectable again, may have been taken out of context. Hammerhead is a violent and poorly dressed murderer who, it turns out, has actually been stealing superpowered weapons in order to rule this city by force in a sort of coup d'etat that I'm certain no one could have seen coming. Especially, apparently, Spider-Man. Now, I stand behind everything I said about admiring Hammerhead's motivations. Kids these days need to put down their smartphones and stop their floss dancing and get jobs like the rest of us did at 8 years old to learn some responsibility. But I think we can all agree that his methods belong in the trash can, and weapons should stay out of discussions about decency. All I have to say is that none of this would have happened if Spider-Man had just stayed off the streets in the first place. I don't know how exactly, but I know it's true. And now I'm going to bed.